What's up? Welcome back to the State of the Arc podcast. My name is Mike.
My name is Kason.
This is the final episode of our Silent Hill 2 analysis. And for this episode, we're going to be going through endings, which there are 6 endings total. 2 of them are complete joke endings, so not much to talk about there. But we'll be going through endings. We'll be going through kind of what I think are the 2 most well-written sequences, which are the final letter from Mary and then that scene where Mary and where James sort of talks to her at her bedside. I love both of those scenes. We're going to be doing those. I actually finally watched Jacob's Ladder, and it was
yeah, me too.
Perhaps the best movie I've ever seen in my life.
It was incredible. Yeah, that movie took me by surprise because it's like, oh, you don't have to read it or you don't have to watch the movie. You'll still get most of it. Like, yeah. I consider that movie to be essential, whether you play Silent Hill 2 or not, actually. Yeah. Like, just watch the movie.
Just watch the movie.
Even if you aren't into this stuff. Like, that was quite an experience. But it did illuminate a lot of things for me within Silent Hill. So we're going to get into that.
Yep.
That movie is the prime reason why I think that it all took place.
That it's all in his head. Yeah.
That's what I got right now.
Okay. Yeah, it was really good. Everybody should watch it.
Everyone
regardless of your attachment to Silent Hill 2.
Maybe if you're really young, you shouldn't watch it.
Yeah, I mean, it's rated R for a reason. So okay, so we watched the movie. We'll talk about that a little bit, and then of course the Born from a Wish sub scenario with Maria.
Yeah.
Kind of talking about her origins, how she came to be. So that's the plan for today. We're also going to go over some questions that were submitted to us from our patrons. And not just questions, but also
answers.
Well, their answers to or their thoughts on certain certain things in the game. So let me just get down to the right place.
And we probably won't do a full treatment on like all of Jacob's Ladder as though like what we did for Nausicaa and stuff. But maybe we should at a future podcast.
Yes.
Maybe later on we can do a full hour and a half on just that movie. I would love to.
I think it's pretty much, we're almost obligated to at this point.
We kind of have to, yeah.
It's going to be voted on on Patreon. For those of you who aren't aware of this, we do an extra podcast, 1 per month, for specifically Patreon. It does eventually become public, but it's several months after the fact. Yeah. But on Patreon, you can vote on movies and different things that may not be like the perfect material for the public podcast, where we do extra kind of deep dives. We're going to,
for instance,
not next week, but the week after, we're going to be recording our analysis of Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah.
Which is one of Kason's favorite movies. Well, it's mine too, but in particular, one of Kason's favorite movies.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think that Jacob's Ladder is going to very soon probably be one of the ones we do there. Now,
good.
Let's jump into this here. So we left off pretty much right as you go into the endings, the final boss and endings. So you said that you watched all the endings?
Yes, I have. I have now familiarized myself with all of the endings. There's one of the endings that apparently changes the boss fight.
Yes.
Yeah, and I
that was
ending. Fascinating. Yeah. But yeah, I saw all the ones that we talked about. So
okay,
interesting stuff.
Before we actually break them down, did you have a favorite? Did you have one that you felt fit best for the story, or do you feel like they all kind of have their place?
Oh. Well, that's a good question. The walk away ending seemed the best for me. It seemed the most positive of the potential endings, right? And it seemed the most like somebody accepting their life and moving on.
Yeah, sure.
Although, is Laura there? Laura's like there, right?
I think
she's running around.
Yeah, she's walking at it.
I don't know why she's there. I assumed it would just be us and that not Laura. But apparently she's there as well with us. We leave through the graveyard with her, I think. I don't know. That's interesting. I don't really know what to make of it. But that was probably my favorite one because the other ones, so there is the one where you go back with Maria.
Yes.
No thanks.
Like, I'm not a fan of that one.
Not good. There's the one, and I didn't know what was happening. I actually had to look into some analysis on this. When he puts her in the boat and rows away.
Yes.
to like an island.
Yes, that's the rebirth ending.
Yes.
That one is really interesting.
Well, I just watched it, but I did get some. I did look into some commentary on what's happening there.
Yes.
And it sounds like he's going to a cult to resurrect her dead body.
That's correct.
That's crazy.
Yes.
So no thanks to that ending either. So I think the walk away one was just the best one.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So I like In Water quite a bit.
Where he dies.
Yes.
That one makes sense.
I think
I don't
that,
love it, but it makes sense.
Yes. Well, either that one or Leave. I definitely am not a fan of Maria, though there is a specific line, which we'll get into here, that he says to her that just like, it has a lot of impact. Like, I really, really like it.
Yeah.
But I don't love the idea of him going off with Maria at the end of the game.
Living in his delusions.
Yeah, for that reason. But I think they're all pretty fascinating. But I do like that Rebirth, it has sort of like the occult roots of Silent Hill 1 present. Because otherwise this game could be interpreted just exclusively that it's all in his mind, right?
And that there is no occult.
That there's no occult.
I never played the first game.
Right.
So the resurrection thing came as a surprise.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So the first game had more occult or monstrous kind of like
yes,
meanings?
like Silent Hill was a town that had a very occult history, which is somewhat hinted at here with the executioners and stuff like
some
that.
of that. Yeah,
but
there was some culty stuff going on.
It was a lot more obvious in Silent Hill 1. And so what this opens the door for example, is that he's not just having some delusion in his mind regarding Maria, but that Maria, through some kind of occult power, became a physical being in Silent Hill, but it was drawn from his idealistic, you know what I mean?
Okay, I do see what you mean. See, had I played the first one, that would have greatly changed my perceptions on this game, because I'm like, oh, the monsters are all the shadow. I would not have assumed the monsters were actually there. But if I did play the first game, I would have an understanding, I think, that, there are actually monsters in this town. Yeah. I just thought they were all just dissonance and difficult things he's getting past.
I like to think of it that way anyways, that it is that, which is why I like Silent Hill 2 and Silent Hill Shattered Memories, for instance, which is like a reimagining of the first game, but with more of that psychological focus than the occult focus, which is why I like it better than just the original Silent Hill 1. And that's kind of a controversial opinion, actually. But
bring it on.
That's why I like those two games in the series the best. And I like a little bit less some of the others that are, they I guess, are more overtly occult, right? Like there's actual supernatural stuff going on. So, but either way, like what I like about this ending is that it allows that interpretation of the story to that there is some actual supernatural occult stuff going on.
Yeah.
But the other endings can lead into more like what we've been talking about, which is where it's more in his mind, right? So I like that the options are there to kind of like people theorize how they want, which is kind of cool.
That's cool.
Interpret it how you want. Of course, then the joke endings are kind of a ongoing thing in the series. There's always kind of a UFO sort of ending where like aliens come and like abduct the character. And I liked how in this one specifically they have Harry Mason, who is the protagonist from the first game, in his PS1 like blocky character model comes and meets James Sunderland, his PS2 model, which is really funny. And then, of course, the dog ending where the dog's like controlling everything, Wizard of Oz style behind the scenes. You know what I mean?
So like, what do you have to do to get those endings, though? It's got to be pretty specific.
I
right?
have a whole page on that I'm going to pull up, and we'll go all over that.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so let's see. What should we start off with first? Let's start off with just those last two scenes. So in any ending other than dog or the joke endings, you're going to have a scene where James is at his wife's bedside and he's sort of like talking to her, asking for her forgiveness. that sort of thing. And we touched on this very, very briefly in the last episode, but this obviously isn't the real Mary he's talking to. This is still kind of in his mind. He's still seeking forgiveness. He's more just like dealing with his guilt here. I think that's more of a metaphor of what's going on. What notes do you have for this scene that we didn't go over last time?
I just have the general. I just copied down a lot of the article, like the dialogues.
Oh yeah,
so
because it's really good.
It's really good, and I actually put down that I should read the script.
Yeah, we might as well just do that.
And then I closed the tab, I guess, so I don't really have that anymore. Then we see ourselves at Mary's bedside and apologize. She says she wanted to die for the pain to end. And James says, I hated you. I wanted you out of the way. I wanted my life back. And he holds Mary's hand to his face, which is what Maria had always done. And I thought that was a really nice touch. I really liked that. But then she coughs and tells him to go on with his life. And then she dies. But it's like, obviously, that's not how she died.
Right.
But, he's trying to, in his own ways, trying to come to acceptance for the situation he's in. So, it's while touching his face that she dies, which is just how Maria always did. So I thought that was really good. But Mary also, in the ending that I had, she says, you got the little letter, kind of some text on the screen, and she's talking, saying, I've done a terrible thing to you that you'll never forgive me for. I wish I could change that. But James, you made me happy.
Yeah.
Now, that's really good. It's fantastical, possibly. It's a little idealistic, but it's plausible. Like, I don't know what the true ending of the game ought to be or not.
Sure.
And I don't know if there is. Is there like a canon
I
ending?
think they've actually said something along the lines like most of them are canon, or all of them are in a certain way. It's not there's not one that is favored to be the absolute, like, this is the one for sure. I think they're trying to leave it up for you to choose, I think.
Well, that makes sense. We get just some really good dialogue that it's just weird thinking, is this real or not, right? Like the whole time. Mm-hmm. But the dialogue's beautiful. It's great. And then we get him walking away through the cemetery. And the big thing that I want to point out here is that as the credits roll at the very end of the whole game, it's him looking into the mirror.
Yep.
And you see scenes from the game in the mirror.
Yep. I like that a lot.
That was really good. And once again, just making me think this is all happening in his mind as he's confronting himself in the mirror.
Yeah.
That's what I got right now.
Yeah. And it plays different music for each ending too. There's like a different ending theme. I'm not sure. I mean, I kind of looked into it, but I couldn't really find, like, if there was a real strong intention with that, and if each one sort of represented the ending differently.
I just realized something. Did he adopt Laura? Is that why he and Laura are walking through the cemetery?
In the Leave ending, I think that is strongly implied that he could be doing that. That he could maybe try to make up for what he did by...
Because she was going to adopt her.
Yes. But I don't know why Laura would accept him as a father. I don't either. Point. And that's the part that I about. But
that's a good point. Actually, that's a good point. Also, it's not easy to adopt people.
No.
And if you're like, a single man adopting a young girl, it would be you'd have to jump through a lot of hoops to make that official.
Yeah. There's not a perfect sort of like conclusion for that, but I think that's at least implied as a possibility.
Okay,
there.
I didn't even. It just kind of jumped into my mind now that could be what that's saying.
Yeah, that he goes off to do that as sort of a way to make it up to Mary or something like that, right?
Because it's what she would have wanted.
Anyway, so for my note, I just took down a lot of the dialogue.
Okay.
She says, James. He says, forgive me. And I like that they included the line, I told you I wanted to die, James. I wanted to end the pain. Because it made me think, did she really say that? Or did he use that as an excuse?
Well, both. Yeah.
Could be a little
I think she really probably said it, but when people say that, I mean, you would do well to exercise some restraint or caution.
Sure.
And who knows, maybe she'd been saying it for 3 years straight. I don't know. But I think for sure she said it. And then it's maybe not for sure that that's what she actually wanted.
Yeah. Well, it's like you could see it as she said this maybe even in moments where the pain was the most intense, or where she was
yes,
you know,
of course.
and he used that as his excuse. That's what it comes across to me, right? Because she says, "I told you I wanted to die, James. I wanted the pain to end." I can see this both as being something she truly did say, but also something his mind right now is still using to try to rationalize and not quite fully accept. And he has to stop himself and go, because at first his response is, "That's why I did it, honey. I just couldn't watch you suffer." Then there's a beat as he really thinks about that. And he says, "No, that's not the whole truth."
Right.
Right.
The
So,
truth is I hated you, right? Yeah.
right.
Yeah. That's right.
You also said that you didn't want to die. So she said both things.
I'm sure, yes.
The truth is, part of me hated you for taking my life away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is a little bit of difference, I think, right around here, where in one of the endings he more strongly says, "I hated you." Like, I really hated you for taking my life away. Maybe that's, if I'm misremembering, you know, someone will let me know, but maybe that's more the Maria kind of ending, right? But in this one, at least, which was in water, I think, when I took the note, it's again trying, I think, to build some context around how difficult it is as a caretaker of someone you love to watch them suffer, but also to feel like you don't have a life. Something's taken away from the caretaker.
Yeah.
And of course, the guilt that comes with that when you know the person suffering from the illness, the terminal illness, is the one who's really, really suffering, right? They're suffering more than you, but there is still a lot that comes along with being a caretaker and having to deal with that. And so I feel like they're trying to make it that hopefully, that the audience is taking that and not just saying James is a horrible person, right? Because James isn't a horrible person. I think I want to really emphasize that. I don't believe he is. The point is, you don't have to be a horrible person to do something horrible.
Right, sure.
I don't think you can really divide people into good and bad people. Life is not black and white in that way, right? There's a spectrum of brokenness on which people find themselves. and the more broken you are, I think the easier it is to justify horrible acts.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And that you need to be careful about that, and you need to work on yourself, and you need to try to put those pieces back together rather than running away from those things or trying to avoid dealing with them or internalizing them or finding resolution to them just because they're painful. I think that's really kind of the spirit of what's being said here. We're not meant to condemn James. We're meant to see that we ourselves are just as capable of doing something like that if we're not careful to look at ourselves in the mirror.
I think that's possibly what it's saying. Yeah. Sure. Or at least ahead of time. Yeah, look at yourself in the mirror
before you do something horrible
instead of after.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's true. And it's about knowing yourself, right?
Yes, know thyself.
Know thyself.
Yeah.
And because you may not think yourself capable of it until it happens. And then it's like, oh, I guess I was. Yeah, too late. Maybe you should have spent some time getting to know yourself a little bit better instead of thinking that you're this high, pure, never do wrong, definitely not monster person.
Yes.
And then, your whole world would break when you find out the hard way what you really are.
Absolutely. So, I think you more or less covered the other things I was going to talk about in terms of that scene, but that's what I really feel like's going on there is he's realizing too late that he took too long to look himself in the mirror. He did something horrible, even though he never meant to be a bad person. It overwhelmed him, and he let it go on too long before he did the process of what he ended up doing in this game, which is looking himself in the mirror.
Right.
But she says, "Go on with your life." At the end, she hands him a note, and I want to read this note because this is just phenomenally well written. I think there's a lot of people who when they see this part of the game, the actress who played Mary and Maria, she says that she burst into tears on the first reading of this, and that they did several other takes after but that they kept the first one.
Oh, really?
Because it was
That's
so emotional.
Oh, no way.
It like embodied the emotion that they were going for, and she was so raw in that reading of it. And a lot of other people say, they have a hard time getting through this letter without, getting teary-eyed as well.
It's very powerful. It's very emotional. Like there's this line here, thanks to the Discord poster who put this on here.
Let me see who it is.
Where James says, I hated you.
Mix.
Thank you. He says, I hated you. I wanted my life back, right? And then Mary says, James, if that were true, then why do you look so sad?
Yeah. Yep. That line's really good.
Maybe he wanted his life back, but not as much as he just wants her back.
Yes.
The old her.
Yes.
Yes. Because when he says, I want my life back, it doesn't mean me alone without you. It means me and you living without this, illness and all that.
Right. Yes, I think that's very true. So here is the letter. In my restless dreams, I see that town, Silent Hill. You promised you'd take me there again someday, but you never did. Well, I'm alone there now, in our special place, waiting for you to come to see me, but you never do. So that was what he had in his letter at the beginning, just that portion of it.
Yep.
Now, I saw someone speculating on this, and I thought it was really interesting, because he didn't actually have this letter, which is indicated by the fact that after you kill Eddie and you go to the hotel, there's nothing on the note anymore. The words are gone. It's blank, right? Yeah. So he never actually received this letter from her. So how does he know the exact wording of like the beginning of essentially this note that he never received? And I saw somebody, of course, this is a little bit of the audience writing the story for the for the developer. Yeah. So I'm not saying this is, take this as anything other than interesting theorizing, but maybe kind of in those final days, she had written this letter to him, right, knowing that her time was coming. Yeah. And it could have been sitting on a desk, because they do mention that she was going to be released from the hospital, she says here, right, for a few days, and that she was worried he didn't want her around because she was nervous to go see him again because of how, snarky and rude she had been to him during this time. Yeah. So maybe it's a possibility that that he had maybe just seen it sitting on the desk or something like that, just peeking out, and maybe just the first few lines, and had seen that part of it but never read the whole letter. Okay. And then never ended up receiving it, because then at that point he killed her at some point shortly after. So maybe that's how he knew the very beginning of it, but never ended up finishing the whole note, and now we're getting the entire thing. And so I thought that was an interesting theory, but so that was the beginning. Then it says, waiting for you to come and see me, but you never do. And so I wait, wrapped in my cocoon of pain and loneliness. I know I've done a terrible thing to you, something you'll never forgive me for. I wish I could change that, but I can't. I feel so pathetic and ugly laying here waiting for you. Every day I stare up at the cracks in the ceiling, and all I can think about is how unfair it all is. The doctor came today. He told me I could go home for a short stay. It's not that I'm getting better. It's just that this may be our last chance. I think you know what I mean. Even so, I'm glad to be coming home. I've missed you terribly. But I'm afraid, James. I'm afraid you don't really want me to come home. Whenever you come to see me, I can tell how hard it is on you. I don't know if you hate me or pity me, or maybe I just disgust you. I'm sorry about that. When I first learned that I was going to die, I just didn't want to accept it. I was so angry all the time, and I struck out at everyone I loved most, especially you, James. That's why I understand if you do hate me. But I want you to know this, James. I'll always love you. Even though our life together had to end like this, I still wouldn't trade it for the world. We had some wonderful years together. Well, this letter has gone on too long, so I'll say goodbye. I told the nurse to give this to you after I'm gone. That means that as you read this, I'm already dead. I can't tell you to remember me, but I can't bear for you to forget me. I really like that one. That one got me. I can't tell you to remember me because of how hard I made it for you at the end, but I can't bear for you to forget me. It's tough. Yeah. These last few years since I've become ill, I'm so sorry for what I did to you and did to us. You've given me so much, and I haven't been able to return a single thing. That's why I want you to live for yourself now. Do what's best for you, James. James, you made me happy. Now, this is
beautiful.
It's especially tough knowing what he was about to do to her. And she's saying all these wonderful things about all that he did and how sorry she was and all these things that he didn't get to hear. I think if he had heard that, he wouldn't have done it.
I'm for sure. Yeah, that's positive.
And the fact that she felt this way and yet he does it, it's just so heart-wrenchingly unfortunate that she could not have expressed this before it happened, right?
Yeah.
That's really the tragedy of it, because he really is a sweet and kind and good person, but he didn't get pushed. He allowed himself to go over the edge.
That's right.
I don't want to make any excuse for what he did. There is no excuse for it. He allowed himself to go over the edge, and I think she could have pulled him back had she said this just a little earlier.
Yeah.
And it's just so hard to know that was in her heart, what she was feeling and going through. And it's so much easier to understand why someone treated you that way when you see that part of their heart, but he didn't get to see it in time.
Yeah.
And it's tough. It's a tough thing to read. It's really, really sad, really tragic, and really beautifully written. I just think it's amazing.
And the actress delivered the line very well.
So perfectly.
And it was very touching. I remember as well at the very end, I'm reminded as you read that last part where she says, live for yourself.
Yes.
It's almost like this is Metal Gear Solid type territory here. So that those last few sentences there is her being like, live, Snake, go, and live for yourself isn't a very good sentence. But, everything else she said was great, so that's perfect. And yeah, it's so interesting for people who found such meaning together, to then tell somebody to just live for themselves at that point. It's like, but at the same time, I know this is the most awkward thing when, like, if there's like spouses. I remember, I know somebody who his wife passed away, and she, before she died, was telling him, hey, because they had a few kids, said, hey, you're going to have to get married to another girl soon as I die. Now, most people have a hard time saying that to their significant other. They want to, don't marry anyone else. I'm the only one, But she knew that he couldn't they had like 5 kids. Like, you can't do this alone. Like, you better, when I'm gone, you better remarry as quick as you can. Like, find a girl and get married again. It would be a little strange for her, especially since it didn't seem like these two had any kids or anything like that. No. It would be awkward to say that, and certainly less romantic. But that, I don't know. The way that it kind of ended with those lines didn't do much for me, but the rest of the script was just beautiful. Yeah.
And, I guess the way I kind of saw that line, that live for yourself, is not so much like go live alone and only care about yourself the rest of your life, as much as a don't live for me. Don't live your life centered around sacrificing for me. Like, give yourself a chance to, take care of yourself now, kind of a thing. And anyway, I just saw this note here from Mix again. He could have received the letter after he killed her too, which would definitely have made him catatonic.
Yeah, it's
like,
true.
Imagine that.
That's absolutely true.
Imagine doing that and then seeing the letter and being just that could send you into like a psychosis.
Oh, for sure, absolutely.
Of where you're like, you don't even know it's real anymore.
You walk out of the room and you're just like,
just go walk into Silent Hill and try to like punish yourself.
Yes.
That
would do it.
That certainly could have done it.
My gosh.
So anyway, beautiful stuff. Let's get into the endings a little bit here and some of the requirements for them. Okay. So the main endings, the first one is leave. And I think this is the one that's the easiest to get. Like, or I should say it's harder to get the others. You have to do very specific things to get them.
Okay.
And you there's kind of a point system where it's like it adds points into this or that ending the more you do things that are required for that. But you kind of start out at the beginning with points assigned into each. And so the leave ending has 5 points assigned to it from the start.
Oh.
The Maria ending has 3 points assigned into it from the start, and the In Water has 2.
Oh,
So it's the easiest to get leave because it has the most points
sure.
at the start of the game already assigned to it. So the leave ending, to receive this ending, James must act as if he wants to survive and complete his journey while not showing too much focus or attention on Maria or the memory of Mary. This is the most likely ending you will receive or you will achieve by playing the game normally or with a quick speed run. So you do need to recover your health as soon as it drops, or in excess of 200% HP in total. So anytime you take damage, you're concerned about healing again, right? Listen to the entire sickbed conversation of Mary and James in the hallway before the final boss.
I think you mentioned something about that.
Yeah,
You could cut
right.
it short. Yeah.
You could cut it short if you wanted to. That's kind of one of the keys to getting the Maria ending, is doing that.
Oh, really?
So what you do not do here is go east after meeting Maria in the Rosewater Park and have her remind you the way to the hotel. So she says, oh, you should probably head this way, which is west, I think, towards this hotel. That's where that she mentions something about that's where you used to stay or whatever. Something she shouldn't have known, right? I can't remember the specifics. But if you then turn and go the opposite way, away from that place, that will actually impact not getting leave. So you'll have that'll take points out of leave if you do that. So to avoid the Maria ending, you need to examine Mary's photo and or letter at least twice. So go into the menu and look at her picture.
Oh, and look at it.
Or look at the letter that she gave you, right? At least twice. Do not spend too much time with Maria. Or bump into her as often as you can. So
no
like
way.
physically run into her, right? That takes points out of Maria to do that.
Oh, that's funny, huh?
Go on Nathan Avenue instead of chasing Laura and have Maria remind you. So when Laura runs to the hospital, I think, if you like spend a lot of time dilly-dallying and not going after her, and Maria has to be like, hey, like go after Laura, right? Do not check back on Maria in the hospital room S3. And do not enter the cell with dead Maria in the labyrinth. So those are the things you do to avoid the Maria ending, which would give you a higher chance of getting leave, right? And then to avoid the In Water ending, again giving you a higher chance of leave, do not keep your stamina in the red zone for too long. Do not examine Angela's knife. Do not read the suicidal diary on the hospital rooftop. And do not read the new message to James on the wall of Neely's bar after the hospital. So the credit song that they use for the leave ending is Overdose Delusion. And then, like we're saying, you have that graveyard as Mary reads her letter, right? And then at the end of that, you see Laura kind of going back out of Silent Hill through that graveyard. This is where we found Angela on the way in. And James sort of follows her out. It kind of looks like they almost come together and leave.
Yeah, I couldn't actually tell. If that's what happened, but
yeah. Okay, so for the Maria ending, you will receive this ending if James shows a lot of attention and comfort towards Maria, thus developing a bond with her instead of holding on to Mary's memory. So the things you want to do, spend 10 minutes or more near Maria, in proximity to Maria throughout the playthrough. Be close to her, right? You want to try not to bump into her. So bump into Maria less than 3 times total.
Oh, yeah, wow.
So don't run into her, but be close.
Yeah.
Protect Maria from monster attacks. So when she's getting attacked, make sure that you don't let her take too much damage. Check back on Maria in the hospital room S3, and then try to re-enter the cell to see dead Maria in the labyrinth twice. So keep trying to check back on her, right?
Okay.
Things you do not want to do to get the Maria ending. This is to avoid the leave ending. So don't examine Mary's photo and or letter at least twice. Do not spend 5 minutes or more far from Maria, out of proximity. Don't attack Maria, allowing her to take significant damage. Do not bump into Maria 30 times or more.
Nice.
And do not go on Nathan Avenue instead of chasing Laura. and have Maria remind you. Also, some more things to avoid the leave ending. Do not recover your health as soon as it drops or in excess of 200% HP. Do not go east after meeting Maria. We've already said that one. And then do not listen to the entire sickbed conversation of Mary and James in the hallway. Already read all the stuff to avoid the in-water ending. So the Maria ending, credit song for that is called Promise. And there's a really, really good line in this one. In the Maria ending, you actually do find Maria instead of, you find Mary instead of Maria, right, for the final boss. And that's the one who you talk to.
Yeah, where she's in the bed, right?
Right. She confronts you about killing her. That's why you needed this Maria person. James, do you really think I could ever forgive you for what you did? And then she transforms into the freaking boss and fights you. So you fight Mary instead of Maria as the final boss. And instead of the scene at Mary's bedside where she gives you the note, you meet Maria back where she first appeared in the game. And she says, you killed Mary again? And he says, that wasn't Mary. Mary's gone. That was just something I... And then he asks Maria. And then she says, what, James? And he says, I want you. I want you with me. And she says, are you sure? And he says, come on, let's get out of here. And she says, what about Mary? And he says, it's okay, I have you. And then Maria gives him a note, the note from Mary that reads at the end there. Mm-hmm. Now they leave the town together, so you see him kind of in that little parking lot, kind of where he started the game near the bathroom, the filthy bathroom. But as they're walking away, Maria kind of starts to cough. Like she has the same sickness that Mary did. And this line that James utters in response is chilling to me. You'd better do something about that cough. It's not, we should get that checked out, or, you really should go to a doctor and see something about. He says, you'd better do something about that cough.
Or else.
Yes,
or else
is how it came across to me. And it was like, dude.
I didn't think of that the way that you just said it.
Yeah,
You're right.
Fetch.
You're right, because that's an if, then, or else statement, right? Like, oh, man.
I was like, wow.
That's crazy. Because my thinking was, he's reliving. This is like if only I had told her to check in on her cough back when she first showed it, and if I was more interested in her, then she would have discovered it earlier and all that stuff.
Maybe, sure.
But that's great.
Well, it's in particular the you'd better do something part. Like,
yeah,
or
that's
else.
like ownership. That's like, that's different.
It's very assertive and it's menacing to me. It's messed up.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So that's the Maria ending, and then in the in-water ending, he basically just collects her body after the scene at the bedside.
Yeah.
You mostly hear this. You don't see a lot. It kind of just goes black. And you hear a car just sort of like rushing into the lake, and he sort of floats down. And so the letter is read kind of like as the camera is underwater, and there's just kind of like, bubbles floating to the top. And so it's like he committed suicide, which I also like because I felt like they set this up kind of at different points. And in particular with that last scene with Angela, where she's like, give me the knife back. And he's like, no. And she's like, oh, you're going to use it for yourself. And he says, no, I'd never kill myself.
Never, yeah.
I feel like there were certain points in the game where they sort of set up this idea that that's what he actually came there to do. Right.
Yeah.
And he was still in his denial phase, but like, that's really why he's here, which is why I think that ending really works. That he could not overcome the guilt, the need to punish himself. And whatnot, so he kills himself.
Narrative-wise, it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
You want to have a happy ending for James, so you just want a happy ending to the story just in general. So the leave ending is more desirable in my opinion. But that's a very real, a very natural ending to this type of a story. Would be that, and it's deep and impactful in its own way.
I feel like it really works.
I think it does.
But of course, I think the others, aside from, I don't like the Maria ending, but I love that line, but I don't like that ending otherwise.
Line, my gosh.
That's just like he didn't learn anything from this experience type of ending. to me.
Well, he's a monster.
Yeah,
That's it.
that's true.
He's just a monster.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Rebirth here,
Okay.
which is a really interesting one. So you cannot... Oh, the credit song for the In Water ending is called Angels Thanatos.
Ooh.
The Eros Thanatos thing we've
Angels
been
of
talking
Death,
about, right?
right?
Yep.
There you go.
Okay, so the Rebirth ending is one you can't get on a first playthrough. You have to complete the game once to unlock the ability to collect 4 ceremonial items in a New Game Plus run.
Okay.
The required items are as follows. Now, this one in particular is going to be important for the Born from a Wish scenario. The White Chrism. You can find it on the kitchenette counter in room 105 of Blue Creek Apartments. The second thing you have to collect is a book of lost memories. It's in the newspaper stand at the Texon gas station in West South Vale. Can only be acquired at day or night.
What?
At day or night?
Like not morning or evening?
I don't get it. I don't really get it.
Not dawn or dusk?
Obsidian goblet inside the Smash display case in the second exhibition room of the Silent Hill Historical Society. And then 4, a book called Crimson Ceremony. It's on the bookshelf opposite the window in the reading room of the Nightmare Hotel. So once all 4 items have been collected, complete the game normally by defeating the final 2 bosses and you will receive the Rebirth ending. Note that if you collect and use the dog key on the 3rd floor of the hotel, you will instead receive the dog ending, regardless of having the items in your inventory.
So that is the Trump ending. It's like it trumps everything.
Yes.
That's hilarious.
If you get the dog key and you use it, then you're not getting anything else.
That's funny.
The credit song used in this one is The Reverse Will. And this one, like we said, it kind of ties to some of the occult sort of a history of Silent Hill, and in particular, more of the occult origins of the first game's storyline, where he takes Mary's body with those items. He goes to a little... And they say this even in the Born from a Wish scenario. Yeah. Ernest, I think, says something like, the gods are still alive here, or something like that, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Now, when you had talked about the whole Lilith on the wall of the bathroom at the beginning, I feel like you said, well, there's definitely some religious something tied in here.
Yeah.
And I think it's a reference to the occult.
To the occult.
History of Silent Hill.
That does make sense. So that particular emblem, the Lilith emblem, for those of you who don't know who Lilith is, it's a fascinating little story. So Adam and Eve were in the garden, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I believe Lilith was technically the first woman in the garden. That not according to biblical. This is all extra biblical. Yeah. Other legends would say that Lilith was the first wife of Adam, and that Lilith got kicked out of the garden early for being evil or something, and then Eve was made from Adam, but that initially God made Lilith to be with Adam. And then after kicking her out, and then I think she ends up coming back a little bit later on. But the idea is that that Adam had like 2 wives. He had Eve and Lilith, right? Gotcha. And that they were the 2 women made by God to be with Adam. And that, while Adam would choose Eve, there would be like an alternate woman. There's like an alternate possibility there, something like that. Yeah. So that's who Lilith is. Okay. It's a kind of I don't know, it's an interesting story, I think.
Well, and then in addition to this being called the Rebirth ending, right, we're talking about some kind of ritual surrounding fertility or birth. Or
it would be fertility. Yeah, that's right.
So anyways, he has these 4 ceremonial items. He goes to his very special place where the gods are still there. I think he says something like the gods, he even says it in this. Let me actually open it because I can't remember specifically what he says.
Well, I will say also that Lilith is considered evil, more or less.
Sure, yeah.
Lilith is considered, not the legitimate wife of Adam, or at least not the one that the humans all come from. And so Lilith will try to seduce or persuade people to do evil, something like that.
Yeah. So I've got it here. What he says is, "I cannot live without you, Mary," as he's rowing his boat towards this little island in the lake.
Yeah.
"This town, Silent Hill, the old gods haven't left this place." So he's going there to perform the ceremony with the items, appeal to the old gods,
Okay, yeah.
and bring her back to life.
That makes sense.
He's going to make an attempt to resurrect her, basically, with some kind of occult ceremony.
I do have a little thing here that I just found. So there were 3 angels when Lilith left the Garden of Eden. 3 angels found Lilith in a cave bearing children, but Lilith refused to come back to the garden. The angels told her that they would kill 100 of her children every day for her disobedience. In revenge, she is said to rob children of life and is responsible for the deaths of stillborn infants and crib deaths, or
Oh,
SIDS.
wow.
So maybe she's not... I don't know. It makes me question whether or not she was ever used in fertility stuff. She seems to be a demon of death. Yeah.
Very interesting.
It's very, very interesting.
Okay, so then the joke endings, I don't think we have to say too much about this. There's
I
a
didn't
dog
really
key
look into
that you get, and you go into a certain room, and it's Wizard of Oz-like, where the curtain's revealed, and there's a dog with a headset and at a control desk with video screens, having watched it and sort of orchestrated it all. It's just it's just funny. And then the UFO ending we've kind of talked about too. But this is what I was talking about with the PS1 model for Harry Mason, and he
That's
comes
funny,
with the
dude.
aliens
That's
and they abduct him, right? So those are all the endings. Maybe we should dive into Born from a Wish.
Okay, let's do
a
it.
little bit here.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
So
So
let me pull this up.
and how do you get this DLC? This is the newer stuff, right? This would come with like the HD versions or something?
Like the HD remaster release had this little DLC. It's very short. It's something
very
you can
short.
beat in half an hour to an hour tops.
Yeah, it's short.
Very, very quick. And
I just have a couple notes.
Yeah, so why don't we have you go over your stuff first?
Initially, she just wakes up. She's holding a gun. She's in a chair. She doesn't know how she got there. She's
Yes.
just there. She knows stuff she thinks she ought not to know. She doesn't. I don't know. She knows and doesn't know a lot of obvious stuff, I guess, about like the name James, and there's just things that she seems to be aware of that are in James's life that
Yes.
we've seen
Right.
that don't seem that she should know. So one of the things is that she's afraid to die alone. She was just created. She was born from a wish. What was the wish? The wish was James wanting to have Mary back. And that created Maria. Maria was born from that desire from James, right? But she needs to fight to survive. And this is so right. Like, you can think about this. We talked about this in Hellblade, of course.
Yeah.
But you can think about it as like the different personalities in your mind, or the different, spirits, demons, the different like personalities or people, or the different thoughts, whatever you want to call it, the different stuff in your mind that influences you to do things. You can think of them as people, right? And in Hellblade, she sees them as people, and they're telling her what to do all the time, and she kind of has to shut them out. But they're fighting for survival within her, right? So they're feeding off of her. They need her to be able to do anything in the world.
Yes.
But at the same time, like, they're trying to survive on their own. And you can see that Maria, in my opinion, being a complete invention by James, that invention clings to life just like a person would, right?
Yeah,
that
right.
it's like, I am going to take hold. My will is going to be manifest in the world. I'm going to make this work. So Maria really does have to fight to stay in James' mind, right? To exist as a being at all.
Yep.
Very good. There's a great example of that is in Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice.
It's a podcast we did that you all should watch, because that game is amazing.
It's a really, really good game.
Yeah.
And I think it's in the second episode of that one we talk about this.
Yeah.
But when she wakes up and she leaves that first room, she's in that nightclub that I was talking about earlier.
Right.
She's in the Heaven's Night.
What do
Paradise
they call it?
or whatever.
I wrote it down. Heaven's Night. Heaven's Night.
Heaven's Night, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that neon sign that says that, and it's great that that's where she was born, right? That she shows up and she's in this area, and it's like she clearly represents that, at least to some degree, within James' mind, right? She represents something along the lines of a seductress, or of a very tempestuous woman.
Yeah.
And so that's where he imagines that she is, right? She's in the nightclub, and she kind of needs to make her way out of there to go find James. She has a gun, and there's blood everywhere. There's this one line. I can't remember who said this. They said, is it the town that's insane or the people?
Ernest says it.
Ernest.
Baldwin.
Okay,
Yep.
so we show up to Ernest, and it's like, oh, this town's crazy. He doesn't want to talk to us. He's behind the door. And it's like, I don't know, maybe we're the crazy ones, right?
Yeah.
It turns out when she opens that door, there's no one there.
Right.
So it was all in her head. But anyways, it's kind of funny. They do a little Inception thing there. And then what I think is so good, is that she slowly comes close to the truth at the very end. Mm-hmm. She comes close to accepting like what she is and why she's there. But instead, she turns away from it, and she's like, I'm going to go find James, right? Yep. She's going to fulfill her purpose. She's going to give in to the subconscious desires and, like, go play that role instead of disappear, right? She's going to fight to survive,
right?
Which is what James is doing.
Exactly right.
So we find that guy. He's great. We got to collect stuff for him. He needs like medicine or something. It's interesting. You've got the red board and the black board and the white board.
I knew you were gonna. I knew you were gonna go an alchemy route with this one.
But how can you not?
How can you not?
I don't know. That's just what it is, right? You have something similar with the Born Again ending, where you've got the
reborn.
There's the white,
the chrism
thing, the chrism. Then there's the obsidian, which is dark, right? Then you have the crimson book, which is red.
Yep.
And then the other, the Book of Lost Memories. Anyways, It's like, okay, you're getting those colors. I don't know. They didn't totally go full alchemy with this, in my opinion. But you know that the symbolism's there. Yeah. And so James really wants to see Mary again, which is just ever present. So then you've got, this is great. Blood is red, mist is white, and night is black. Mm-hmm. Now, this was just kind of some text that kind of is descriptive of the stuff that she's, collecting, and those squares that we have to like put on the cutout. But it kind of made me think about the game a little bit, this whole game, because the fog is white. As we're walking through the fog, it is the whiteness. But then when we get into buildings, it's just blackness. There's just this shadow everywhere. And then, of course, the crimson being the blood. There are times where you can't see too far ahead because of either fog, darkness, or blood.
Yeah.
And that is this whole game. And towards the end of the game, towards when Maria is being sacrificed and stuff, it is that red, it's that crimson that really stands out. But we're surrounded by all of this stuff. And I don't know. I thought that was really good.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Ernest, before she discovers that he's not really there, is that James is looking for the you that isn't you.
Yep, I like that line a lot.
That was super good because it's like he's looking for Mary, but instead you're here. But, whatever, you can go pretend to be who you aren't anyways if you want to.
Yep.
And so she goes to do that. Oh, exactly that. But she had this moment of almost self-awareness that she just she puts away. And you see James doing that over and over. The little dots.
Yeah.
He can't, anytime he's about to make a realization, he stops and then turns back into doing whatever he was doing before.
Right.
He just won't allow himself to go there.
Yep.
That's like the totality of my notes. It was way shorter than I thought it was going to be.
Really short.
And basically, once you open the door where Ernest is and he's not there, there's like a happy birthday card. Oh, yeah, and his daughter had died. That's right.
Yeah.
Like 10 years previously, she had fallen out a window. But nobody was there. And then the whole thing just kind of ended there. So I didn't really know. At first, his daughter, I was like, oh, it's Laura. And like, no, it's Amy, and it's a totally different girl. What did you make of all of that?
Okay, so a lot of similar notes as to what you had brought up. So the Heaven's Night strip club that she wakes up in, right? I like how she talks about how she hates being alone, right? She's afraid of the monsters out there.
Yeah.
But she's really afraid of being alone. She makes a real strong point on that numerous times. She doesn't want to be alone. And even when she finds Ernest, she says something about, I just need to see another person's face. Please open the door. Let me see another person. She's desperate to be with someone. It's like kind of why
That's her identity.
She's been made to be with James, right? So,
and then when she finds James, she sticks to him. really
right.
closely.
Yeah. Why did you leave me all alone? Or even
Yeah.
even the very beginning when he starts to leave, when he first
She's
meets
like,
her,
"You're not-
you're going to leave me alone in this
Yeah.
place. It's a really big thing to her, is being alone. So she wakes up with this fear of being alone, not knowing what's going on out there, but being aware of that monsters have sort of taken over, and wondering if anyone's left, and contemplating suicide kind of right from the very beginning. Right?
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
I don't want to
Yeah.
be alone in this place. But
That's
she
right.
decides to go out and look for somebody.
Oh, that's right. At the very end, before she goes to find James, she puts the gun to her head.
Yes, because she doesn't want to
As
be
if
alone.
she's like, yeah, she can't take it. But then she looks for James instead.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, but the nightclub or itself, Heaven's Night, right? In the bathroom at the very, very beginning of the game, there are posters there of Maria and Heaven's
oh, really?
Night.
At the very beginning?
The very beginning in the bathroom. On the
Oh,
wall
I
there,
don't
kind of like
recall.
right near the exit. Yeah. I didn't either the first time I looked at
weird.
it. This was something I saw the second time.
Huh.
So
Interesting.
it kind of brings up the question of whether or not, again, depending on how you're interpreting this game, whether you're interpreting it as this is all in James' mind, or whether you're interpreting it as things from James' mind become real through the supernatural means of Silent Hill or whatever. However you're reading this, maybe there was a person named Maria who worked at that Heaven's Night strip club or something like that, but then took on the identity of Mary through James entering the town. I'm just saying that there's something there,
right.
because there was a poster in the bathroom before he even got there
Yeah.
that had
That had
Maria's
her on
face
it.
on it, and it had the Heaven's Night Club. So just something to kind of chew on there. I thought it was interesting. But so she makes her way to that mansion, right? She has a gun, like right from the beginning of the game.
It's, already in her hands. And it seems a little big for her hands,
Yeah,
by the way.
it's a large gun.
It's a very big gun, yeah.
But makes her way to this mansion. This is the Baldwin Mansion. And, of course, hears that she's just looking for somebody in there, and Ernest kind of trying to get her to go away
Yeah.
at first. And she's just so happy that there's another person who's not a monster and is not crazy. Like, please, let me in. We pull up some of the dialogue for this.
I love that there's like almost an opposition, like they're two opposites. Ernest does not want to see anyone else and wants to be alone. Whereas Maria really wants to see other people and absolutely hates being alone.
Yes.
And you're about to finally get a synthesis where he begins to open up a little bit, and then she is finally going to see another person. And
Yeah.
it just doesn't happen.
No.
It's so, that's fascinating.
So some dialogue here. So the first line from her when she first wakes up: "When I woke up, I was all alone." First thing she says. "Everyone's gone. Is it because of those monsters? But I'm scared to die. I'm so afraid of pain. I want to find somebody. I don't like being alone." That's what sparks her to go out and look. So when she actually...
Honestly, this is like Mary. A lot of this sounds like Mary to me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Afraid of death.
Yeah,
like
afraid to die,
really
afraid of
scared
pain.
afraid of being alone.
Yeah, want to be with somebody.
Yeah. So she finally finds Ernest Baldwin and is asking him, about the monsters. Does he know anything about this? Like, what happened here? And he just basically says, "Good. Like, I don't care that people it just means people leave me alone." And so,
How does he eat?
well,
How does he get food?
Right. Well, I guess she doesn't think to ask those questions. But what she does ask is, "You want to be alone in this insane asylum?" And he says, "Yes, exactly. But how can you say that it is the town that is insane? Perhaps it is we who are insane, both of us helplessly insane or hopelessly insane." I liked that line a lot, because that kind of speaks to what Silent Hill has become. Like, clearly it was originally like a normal town people lived in. Well, I say normal, but it at least had some dark kind of occult stuff going on in it.
Yeah.
But more or less normal. But
Yeah.
now it exists as this place where insane people come to try to like deal with their problems. So I like that line from him there. Now, she decides that she's going to kind of help him deal with his ties to why he's still around, right? Which are his guilt, remorse, sadness regarding the death of his daughter, Amy. And so it's through Maria's exploration of the mansion that she goes into the attic and finds a birthday card there that was written from Amy to Ernest. And the tragic part of this is that she was up there trying to do it in secret. It was supposed to be a surprise.
Right.
And he heard something going on up there and went up to investigate. And she didn't want to be seen there because she was creating a birthday surprise for her father. So she tries to climb out the window and falls. And so when you hear Amy's voice telling Maria, take this back to my father. So when she gives it to Ernest realizes what actually happened. Because I went up there and she was trying to keep it a secret, she fell. And the whole thing just becomes even more tragic. But she's grateful to Maria for having helped him realize what actually happened and fully understand it. And this is when he asks her to go collect an item for him specifically.
Yeah, there's one thing he's missing. It's like a liquid. But I can't remember what it was.
He calls it the white liquid.
Yeah, okay.
Which white chrism is one of the items you're meant to collect in the rebirth ending.
Because he says, I have other things. That's the only thing I don't have.
Right.
So what he's saying is he has the Book of Lost Memories, the Obsidian, and the Crimson Book.
Yes.
But he can't get the white chrism.
Because he's a ghost, I think, in this place. He's tied. His soul is tied to this house.
So he physically can't pick things up.
He can't go there. He's like, that's why she says, why don't you just go get it yourself? He's like, if I could, I would do that.
Right. I remember that, yeah.
And so he sends her out to another building to go grab this white liquid. He knows exactly where it is, but he can't go get it himself. And so he is trying to do the same ritual to bring his daughter back, and probably was even in his life trying to collect all of the items or do this same ceremony for the rebirth of his daughter.
Well, that would draw people to this place.
Yeah. Certainly.
Yeah.
So he was never able to resolve that in life, and it seems like his spirit is sort of tied to that mansion where he used to live, and he can't leave it because he can't resolve his pain surrounding what happened there. Maria kind of helps him do that.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And as thanks for that, I think he tries to warn her about James. He says, Well, there's some other really good lines here, so let's read some of this dialogue. So he says, along with you died joy. All that remains is despair and a future of meaningless tomorrows. But I will never give up. One, to see your beautiful smile again. One, to beg the blessings of the gods. I wait for that day. So he clearly believes in these old gods of Silent Hill. Yeah. Right. When the boards cover all sadness too will be covered. But until my dreams return to reality, I will have to swallow all the pain. She apologizes for reminding him of all this, and he's like, no need to apologize, right? But he says something interesting here. Maria, so you must be, that's why you could see me. Really vague line, but I think he realizes at this point, which is before he sends her after the white liquid, that the reason she can see him, not see him, but interact with him, I'm thinking, is because she's one of the monsters of Silent Hill born from James's wish, right? Which is the title of the DLC, Born from a Wish.
Right.
That's kind of where he realizes it, right? But he sends her after the white liquid, and when she comes back with it and everything's done, she says, Ernest, do you really believe it'll work? He says, I don't know. That's the only item I couldn't get myself. By the time I found out about it, I could no longer leave this house. So long. And she says, yes, but will. And then, Maria, the gods are here. You know it too. You were born in this town. Now, was Mary... Mary and James just visited Silent Hill. I don't think she was born there. She didn't make any mention of that. So Maria being born here, I think is an important line there. She's not Mary. She's a
of all the
thing.
People we meet in the game, nobody was from that town.
Right.
They all came from somewhere else.
Yeah,
but Maria is from there. She was born there.
And the fact that he says, Maria, the gods are here. You know it too. You were born in this town. Sort of lends a little more credence to that interpretation of the supernatural occult of reading, right? Where it's like the gods are the ones who brought you to life from the mind of James. Again, I'm not saying that that's my interpretation. I'm saying there's so many ways you can read this.
That could be it. So, so you've got the gods, and they they perform things. They allow people to be reborn.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got James, who wants a person to be born. And then you have a person being born in the town.
Yeah, right.
Who is Mary, who I don't know how real Mary is. Maria, sorry.
Maria, yeah.
I don't know how real Maria is. But yeah, that's interesting. So it's possible that there was something of a birth through the supernatural means. I just don't know what to do with that because I don't know the rules. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know how the world works.
And it's vague on purpose.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
But I love her response to that because he said, Maria, the gods are here. You know it too. You were born in this town. She says, I'm not sure God is the right word.
So she would mean devil, something like that, right?
Like what you said about Lilith, right?
Yes, something more like the demon woman Lilith. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. But then he says, do you believe in fate? And she says, not really. And he says, that's fine then. And then this is a dead end. There's nothing beyond here. I know. So what if I had said I believed in fate, she says to him. And this is where he tries, I think, in thanks for all she did for him, to try to warn her. He says, that James, he's a bad man. And she says, James? And then it starts to kind of sound familiar, right?
But that's referring to fate, though.
Yeah.
So in reference to fate, he's now bringing up James.
Right.
Where it's like you and James are fated to interact often, try to break that whole fate thing. And it's so funny because it's like she doesn't believe in fate, whether she believes in it or not. It's what happens to her.
He says, that's
Doesn't
fine.
matter.
It's fine you don't believe in it.
Yeah. You're living in it. Yeah. What is that? It doesn't matter if you don't believe in ghost stories because you're in one.
Yeah.
Miss Turner.
Right.
Yeah.
So she says, yes, I know, because she's kind of starting to recollect.
The name
memories
James.
are coming.
Yeah,
She's slowly getting them. She's slowly kind of like remembering a James, remembering even some of Mary's memories, like I talked about a little earlier. So yes, I know. And then he says he's looking for the you that isn't you, the line that you brought up, the you that isn't Mary, obviously, right? Or that is Mary, sorry. And then she says, because he's kind, right? And that would have, I think, been a Mary kind of memory. Mary told Laura that.
Sure, yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Do you know something, she asks? And he says, yes, Maria, you're, and then she cuts him off.
Yep, she doesn't want to know.
That's just what you think. You don't really know anything. That's fine. And that's exactly what you were talking about.
So good. She's so close to discovering the truth, and she decides, no, I don't want to know the truth.
Yep.
And it's similar to what James does when Angela is telling him about Silent Hill. And she's like, hey, James, about that city you're going to. And he's like, don't tell me. I know it's dangerous. I'm going anyways. Don't talk to me. I'm not listening. Mm-hmm. And that's what Maria does here. So it's so funny because she's born, and I think of her as more or less stemming from the mind of James. But she has she has sort of free will. She's definitely in a deterministic situation. She definitely is bound by fate. She doesn't have much say in what happens. But she's trying to claim it. She's trying to reclaim a type of free will. She's trying to, have control over her own life. Mm-hmm. But she doesn't.
Yeah.
But she wants it so bad.
Right. Now, if we take this discussion about fate, right, that she's fated, and we interpret the story with a little bit more of the supernatural occult sort of background, and that she became a real girl.
A real boy, yeah.
But that her fate is to act as this sort of companion for James, who is going to be killed by Pyramid Head over and over again until he sort of comes to the truth. You start to understand why she's so pissed at the very end when he won't take her and he says, I'm done with you.
Wow.
How much that must
That's pretty
hurt.
good.
Because her fate was to be refused by him.
Yeah.
I no longer need you anymore. And had to be like the vessel with whom Pyramid Head will just slaughter over and over again to get him there. That's
crazy.
her freaking fate.
That's her purpose.
That sucks.
And you know what's crazy? That's really good. I did not think of that. That absolutely sucks. I'm also thinking, too, if James was able to resurrect Mary, the body of Mary, I am of the opinion that it would have just been Maria's spirit that would have gone into Mary, right? So if James resurrects Mary, it's like, yeah, but if you're talking about a wandering spirit that is looking to become real and is looking to escape their whatever's going on there, and you're looking at James, who really wants Maria, that's who he wants. That's the spirit that's going to go into Mary. Anyways, I'm speculating there, but that's
it's crazy.
That's
it's
crazy. So her whole fate was just to serve as a pawn to somebody who's not even a good person, right?
No.
It's not like she was helping somebody along who needed help, but who was a good person and was. It's like she's helping. Yeah, she got assigned.
Guy who murdered his wife.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Crazy.
That's wild.
So yeah, I mean, it makes Maria a much more sympathetic character
in that sense.
I mean, she already was, but even way more so now.
Mm-hmm.
And just a really, again, one of many sort of like tough pills to swallow that come along with this game's story.
Yeah.
It's Silent Hill is a tough place. There's a lot of hard, painful things you got to go through.
Absolutely.
There. Even the monsters who live there, right?
Yep. That's true. Yeah, that's true.
So that about wraps it up.
It does. I have just for the whole thing.
I was just going to jump
DLC.
over to Patreon, but or Jacob's Ladder, but
I've got a thing or two before we leave this completely.
Okay.
First of all, I've got the Nietzsche quote that I had read earlier.
Right.
I read the relevant line, but I didn't realize the line before it. That's actually really good. It's when you gaze into the abyss also gazes into you. The line before it is so good. It's basically this whole game. He says, whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster. Mm-hmm. And if you gaze long enough into the abyss will gaze back into you. So that's the actual line.
Right.
And talking about fighting monsters and becoming a monster, I don't know. It just seems like that, that whole line is even more powerful within the context of the game.
Yeah.
And then as I was looking at all of these endings and stuff, I actually stumbled across something that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You remember when James first gets the walkie-talkie?
Yeah.
And it's all garbled, and he's like, I don't know what they're saying. He couldn't understand what they were saying.
Oh yeah, that did seem like a setup to something.
There is something said there that you can, if you listen really hard, and I'm glad I didn't, by the way. The question is, it's a woman, it's Mary's voice. Mm-hmm. And the first thing, maybe not the first thing, but one of the first things she says as it's cutting in and out is, James, why did you kill me?
Oh, wow, really?
And it's all garbage. It's like, why did you
kill
me? And it's like really jacked. We should play the audio in the edit here. It's really creepy. It's so weird. I did not know that. And now I went back and listened, and I was like, that's right. It really did say that. Oh, my gosh.
Nuts.
This thing broken?
James, I'm here. Come to me. James, I'm waiting for you. Why did you kill me?
Why did you kill me? That's like, and then it's so funny because he listens to it, he hears, why did you kill me? And it's all dissonant, but it's like garbled and staticky. And he goes, I don't understand what's going on here. And he just kind of puts it away and keeps walking. And it's like, oh my gosh, James, you are so dense.
Also say something like, it may be important later, or I may need this later, or something like that,
yeah,
which could be a reference to, I need to accept what was just told to me at some point
that would
later.
Make sense. Yeah. Wow. He's like, it seems kind of broken, but I better keep it along and see if it makes sense later. Yeah, wow. It will, dude. It will.
That's crazy.
That was great. And then I think I've...
Is that all the notes for Silent Hill 2?
I took a note, and I exiled it to the very end here. I'll bring it up just because maybe someone else can make heads or tails of it.
Okay.
But the name eddy means to turn back or to reverse water. Like an eddy is like it shoots water back upstream or something like that. It's... I don't know that that's super relevant other than it's countercurrent. It's like against the natural current. But the name Edward means a guardian of wealth. Mm. So if Eddie is just short for Edward, and he is a threshold guardian for sure, and someone we have to overcome in order to, continue on with the narrative with our lives, then the name Edward can make a little bit more sense. And then Eddie is like, I don't know, going against current is like Sword of Eddie, I guess. I don't know that name really meant much.
Yeah.
And that's it. We've finished all of my notes, and I'm ready to move on to like the best movie ever.
Yeah, so
we can't spend too much time here, though. I'm sorry, everybody.
We can't. And like I said, I mean, this is very likely to become a whole podcast episode in and of itself for Patreon later.
Yes,
an analysis of Jacob's Ladder. But I guess, what do you want to say about it as far as your reading of Silent Hill, or what pertains to it, or just general thoughts maybe of the movie? Or
well, I mean, this is probably a good point to say that if you haven't watched the movie, go watch it instead of listening to us talk about it.
You owe it to yourself to see this movie.
Yes, treat yourself.
Yeah, dude.
Watch this movie. I gotta say, so I would love to get into the whole film. I just can't. I mean, I only took 2 notes on the whole film. I have 2 notes. They're long notes. But a part of it is about Pyramid Head being the shadow and the way Pyramid Head acts at the very end of Silent Hill 2, where as soon as we accept what's going on, as soon as we confront the shadow and stand up to it and say, I am, and as soon as we we know who we are and we see the shadow for what it is, the pyramid kills himself. He just does away with himself, and he's like, I am no longer an obstacle to you. There is a line from Meister Eckhart that is quoted in Jacob's Ladder, but I don't know if I should say it.
Don't read it.
Away. Okay, I'm not going to say it. I'm not.
Yes,
just you know what? Maybe we should really just treat this later.
Yeah.
It's enough to say that you guys have to see this movie.
Yeah.
You have to watch this movie. It is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, I probably shouldn't quote any of that, because it's really good though.
Yeah.
But there is a moment in Jacob's Ladder about halfway through, maybe more than halfway through, where it legitimately scared me on a deep psychological level. I don't have a general fear of death that's ever present. I'm going to assume most people is like this. Sure. I can kind of put that away in the back of my mind. I'm not afraid to die. Generally speaking, I'd rather not die. Okay, I'm not. I don't want to die. Were it to present itself before me, I would do everything I could to get away from it, because I don't actually want to die. That fear would become present. But generally speaking, it's not something I'm too concerned with. But watching this movie, it definitely made me think about what it might be like to die, and it's a really great movie. It's just incredible. But I will say, I'm glad I didn't. I wanted to stop watching, actually.
Yeah. Oh wow.
I am really glad that I didn't stop.
Is there
watching.
a way for you to
I can only
allude to
explain
the
it
scene without giving away which one it is? Because I'm really curious which scene it is.
Okay, so there's a couple. But it's mostly as soon as I realized the idea of what the film was getting at, which is what I kind of don't want to bring up. But it's that hospital gurney scene where he's being pushed through the hospital, and it just keeps getting darker and darker and worse and more horrific and crazy. And it's just, he's seeing things from his past. He's seeing all sorts of crazy stuff. And then at the moment of that it's just a nightmare. It's just a nightmare.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it is just a nightmare.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that's, anyways, you guys have to watch it. I can't say too much. I really can't. I want to. But please watch it. And we are going to do a full treatment of this movie. We might have to, I don't know. I guess a lot of it depends on what the Patreon people vote for.
Yeah, vote for, right.
I want to explain why this movie scared me so much, and why by the end of it, I think it's one of the best movies ever made, and why it's actually not as scary as it seems, I guess.
Yeah. Yes.
It is horrific, though. It is really scary. It is so scary. Oh, man. Just chilled my bones.
I think as you're sitting here talking about, kind of coming to terms with or thinking about one's own mortality, right?
Yes.
there's a part of me that wants to share something, and a part of me that's also kind of scared to do that. And I'm not afraid to talk about this.
Okay.
I actually feel like it's really important for me to do it, but there's also the aspect of not wanting to trigger people online with certain
Sure.
dark topics, right? So
Gotcha.
there's a part of me that wants to avoid being really specific about what I'm going to say next. But let's just say that hearing you talk about that, I feel like for the last probably 5 years, I've done a lot of thinking, in particular in bed at night,
Yeah.
waking up from dreams.
That's, yeah.
I have suffered from sleep paralysis.
Right.
It used to be a lot worse when I was in my early 20s. It would happen like once a month, like all the time.
That is just horrible. I hate that.
And we've talked about this a little bit in the podcast in the past. I don't remember what.
I think Hellblade,
It was
actually.
during
Yeah.
It was during Hellblade. I was
Yeah.
talking about sleep paralysis. So there's another reason to go watch that one, where you get the full story of this. But
Yeah.
anyway, I would think a lot about death, like the actual moment of my death and what
Right.
it felt like to me. And it's a really horrifying feeling to contemplate, particularly when it's sort of mixed with this dreamlight state in which you're being pursued by a freaking demon and you can't move and you're really, really scared.
Okay. Yeah.
So I had that experience so many times over the last 15 or so years that I've had a lot of time to really think about it on a pretty deep level, think about my own death and whatnot. And I can say pretty confidently that at this point, I am totally at peace with the idea of death.
Yeah.
And again, without trying to be personal to the degree to which I might trigger somebody, I'll kind of be very vague about this part. But I came really close to death earlier this year. This is something I've not talked about publicly, but something that I feel kind of compelled to talk about right now in relation to this, because I think it's an important thing for people to think about. And it's become, to me, one of the most important sort of moments of my life, because I can live without fear now, if that makes sense, right? Like the feelings you're describing as watching that movie, that really like primal, deep, like primordial fear of death, right?
Yeah.
Is something that I feel like I'm free from, and that has allowed me to not be afraid of a lot of things that I think almost everybody are afraid of. When we're talking about like politics, when we're talking about economics, when we're talking about just all these things that people
future.
worry about the future, right?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm freed from fear of that. And a lot of it came from this experience that I've had and how often I've thought about my own mortality over a long time. But there was a moment in this movie that brought me to tears. It's the same one you referred to, the Master Eckhart quote, where it just confirmed like the I feel almost objective truth of that statement. Like that is the point of that's the point you need to reach in life, is to do what he says in that scene. And then it's no longer something that feels so scary, right?
Yeah.
And so that's all I'm going to say about that.
I was fully expecting to talk about this film here until I realized how absolutely important this movie is.
Yeah.
And I don't want to ruin it for anybody.
Yeah.
Anybody.
Yeah.
So ruin it for yourself if you want, but we're not going to be the ones to ruin it for you. This movie's too important for that.
Yeah.
And it's not just, I thought it was just like a horror film.
Yeah. Right?
It's not just a horror film. It is so much more than that. It is a very... I almost require. I feel like it should be required viewing
for the human condition.
For humans,
almost.
yeah. As soon as you turn, like, I don't know, whenever you can handle it, like 16 or 25 or however old, at some point, people need to watch this film.
Yes. Yes, I got through that movie and felt like it's the kind of movie that can and should have a life-altering effect on a person.
Yeah, and if you've seen it before and you were like, no big deal. Okay, you may have been too young.
Yeah,
You may not have contemplated death much. Watch it again.
yeah,
Right? Watch it again, especially with this Silent Hill 2, the thematic material in Silent Hill 2 that we've been talking about for weeks now. Watch it again, and maybe watch it every couple of years.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know, it was life-changing. I was not expecting that.
I was not
expecting
that
like
at
a
all.
Resident Evil, a slasher horror, and it is really scary. I just, the last quarter of that movie it is something else. You got to watch it.
Yeah, and what was so interesting to me in light of what we're talking about is I wasn't scared during this movie. I was never scared at any point in it.
I was, but it was that primordial fear that you're talking about. But I almost feel like I overcame it through this movie.
Through the movie,
vicariously by proxy. We'll see. But it seems like that's what this movie was made for. It was patterned after, I've looked up a little bit about it since I watched it. It's patterned after the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which I have not read, but I'm going to now.
Yeah.
I'm going to read that book. And then there's the Egyptian Book of the Dead as well. There's a couple books that talk about, hey, here's how to pass on. Here's how what happens when you die.
Yeah, right.
And when we review the movie more at length, we're definitely going to bring that stuff up.
Yep.
But anyways, we should probably stop talking about it.
Yes, we should move on from that. I think that's enough. Everybody, please go watch the movie.
Please.
And let us know what you think about it. But of course, like I said, we're definitely gonna analyze that in full at some point. So we want to go over some questions, remarks, things from Patreon here. We've also had some pretty interesting. We've also had some pretty interesting things said here in the chat, so I want to scroll through that a little bit too. Well, let's get into this here real fast. So this is from Mix, who is here with us live right now.
Nice.
In the Silent Hill 2 community, there seems to be a tussle between Leave and In Water as the two more canonical endings. Guy, now I don't know how to say his name. This is the voice actor for James. Is it Sihi or is it Kihi?
Oh, I don't know.
It's Cihi. I want to read that as Sihi, but I don't know. Even said that he personally preferred the Leave ending, but he saw the symbolism in Water that was unique to the East Japanese media.
That's basically where I'm at.
Yeah. Which of the two endings do you feel were most appropriate? I guess we've kind of already said that.
Yeah. Like the In Water feels more realistic, but I would prefer the Walk Away, the Leave ending.
Yeah, and I lean more towards In Water, but I like Leave as well. Yeah. I think they're both good, but I lean a little bit more In Water. Diclosis, and I think we probably don't have to talk too much about this. I think we've more or less answered this question throughout the analysis. He asks, or I guess I don't know if it's he or she asks, is James a bad person?
Don't know. Don't have enough info.
My interpretation is he is not, and that people who are not bad people are perfectly capable of doing really bad things. And that, to me, that kind of felt like the
That's
point.
what I'd say. He is a person.
Yeah. He's a human being.
He is a human person.
Human beings are not good or bad. They're on a spectrum of brokenness, I feel.
There you go.
Okay, David Butt, what do you think about the joke endings, and what do you think Laura sees throughout the game? Personally, I think she sees a regular abandoned town without any monsters or weird puzzles. I lean that way too. Also, what type of puzzles or monsters do you think Eddie and Angela saw, as Pyramid Head seems probably unique to James?
Gosh, I don't actually know how to answer that one, at least in part because I don't think those people were real. I think that it was all James. It was all just James doing stuff, and these people were manifestations of his inner psyche, outward manifestations, the exterior things that he could actually interact with that would make sense of whatever he was trying to do internally, and that they were just there at convenient parts for James when he needed help or when he needed to confront one of the people inside of his mind that he's trying to get past.
Right. I kind of agree that Laura and, in particular, Eddie and Angela are all real people who are seeing different things. And that Laura is the one who sees basically just a normal abandoned town. She's not seeing anything crazy because she's not old enough or have no experience or broken enough yet to Well, I mean, she's an orphan, so clearly she's had some trauma, but at least not to a point yet where she sees something horrific enough to be like really alarming to her, or whatever that might be. But yeah, I kind of lie in between the like full-on sort of supernatural reading of the game and the full-on psychological reading of the game. I kind of like certain elements of both of them, and so I kind of take the pieces I like from each.
Sure, yeah.
But the way I read it is that the monsters in the town and Maria are kind of the figments of James' imagination, though, of course, there's plenty of evidence to say Maria became a real person. But I like it better to think that she's not, and that the monsters are not, but that Angela, Eddie, and Laura are. So, I think Eddie would have been seeing, obviously, just people constantly berating, making fun of him, mocking him, putting him down. Angela would have probably seen a lot of reflections of sexual abuse. Of course, the world on fire. Probably mostly what she was seeing. That would be my guess. Rodrigo Lañas. Is it even possible to remake Silent Hill 2?
Probably not. We're about to find out.
I think in the literal sense, sure. I mean, they can make a game called Silent Hill 2 remake and, release it.
It would be a game.
But would it have, I think what he's really asking is, is it possible to really like have that same effect, same level of artistry again? I lean on no, but I don't think it's impossible. I think it is. I think it can be done.
But the corporate incentive structures are such that it just won't happen. Like, yes, it's possible, but just play the game again. You don't worry about whether they can update graphics well enough or not.
Yeah.
Like, just the game's there. It's good. I'm disenchanted from remakes now.
I certainly don't have a lot of confidence in Konami at this point to do justice to Silent Hill 2 the way it deserves. But I don't think it's impossible in the right hands. It just depends on if that is in the right hands, if they've put it in the right hands in terms of a producer, director. It remains to be seen. I just don't have a lot of faith in it. Netro, hey dudes, I'm wondering what your guys' thoughts are on the pros and cons of having a horror game in third person versus first person after playing this.
I prefer third. Okay. First person horror. Well, first-person horror, I don't know. I still feel detached. I have not yet gotten over, like, when something jumps out at you and tries to kill you and stabs you in first person, it just doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't make sense. It's scary. It's still scary and maybe a little more jumpy. But in third person, I don't know. I'd probably prefer a third person. I don't know exactly how to analyze that, though, other than to say that when somebody attacks you in first person and you see the face, but you can't see exactly what the hands are doing, but you're taking damage and they're like really close to you, it's just not as scary. The third person will be much scarier in that sense. That's all.
It's kind of funny because I feel maybe a little bit opposite on the last point, where limiting your view into the first person can be a really good way, especially using like sound design and things like that, where you can't see as much.
That's true.
And it can be a little scarier, but
it's like cheap scary though.
Sure. I could see that too. I do want to say though, I keep bringing up Shattered Memories, Silent Hill Shattered Memories.
It's third,
I think that this game actually does the best job of utilizing both, specifically for the right reasons. So when it does go into first person, which it does have sequences, it's for really, really the right reason. The reason that I think works, that first person perspective is for. Like, the reason first person perspective works in any game and why you would choose to do it, it uses it for the right reason in Shattered Memories, and then it goes to third person for exactly the right reasons. I think that's the best example of a horror game I can think of using both for in the ways that I think are most effective for each. So play Silent Hill Shattered Memories. I can't stress enough that I think it's really good. Vinny Capiotti, maybe Capiochi. What is your opinion on the way the ending is secretly decided by player behavior? In most games, endings, when there are multiple, are either linked to how well you play or to explicit player choices. In Silent Hill 2, it seems to me that they wanted to give the most natural and appropriate ending for each player's experience instead of explicitly rewarding a certain play style or decision. Are there any other games that do something similar? I'm going to say it again. Silent Hill Shattered Memories kind of takes this even to another level in terms of how you play it, what you choose to interact with. Because you can use the Wiimote to kind of like make calls to people.
That's
you
right.
can get phone numbers. And so you can call certain numbers. It's all in those little things you do, not like these explicit, you're making a really important choice and this will affect the ending type of way. But in just how long do you spend looking at this poster on the wall? How often do you spend kind of like calling this character? And that sort of, determines things. So Silent Hill Shattered Memories takes this same concept, which is something I really like about Silent Hill 2, and tries to also use it in this reimagining of the first game's story. So try that out if you haven't. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Nope.
Okay. I'm going to skip that one because we already talked about that. Evan Richmond, you've mentioned Twin Peaks' influence on Silent Hill already, but with Angelo, I can't say this name, Badalamenti's recent passing, I'm guessing this is someone involved in Twin Peaks. Could you talk more about the amazing soundtrack and what influenced it? I've seen articles cite Angelo's work when talking about Akira Yamaoka's score. Oh, maybe that's the person who... Okay, I'm guessing
we
Angelo...
don't know these people.
Angelo composed the soundtrack of Twin Peaks. Akira Yamaoka, I'm guessing, is who scored Silent Hill. That makes way more sense.
Yeah, it does make more sense.
But haven't found any official interviews tying them together. Love this podcast. Keep up the good work.
I don't have anything for that.
I regret very much to say that I think I fell into the same thing that others you're saying fell into, where they didn't talk about it enough. And I can say that I really like the soundtrack of Silent Hill 2. I think there's a lot of really cool, kind of airy, patty, environmental sort of eerie tones and soundscapes there that I really like. I did not spend enough or even really any time trying to tie the music into how it contributes to the story. Usually I like to do that, but I didn't do it enough. Yeah. This is partly just not having enough time in the weeks that we prepare for these, but maybe that's something I can think more about, because I do want to do a video essay on Silent Hill 2, and so maybe I can just say to you that's something I'll keep in mind whenever I end up working on that video. I'll try to think more about the music and talk about it there if I do that. Okay, Ash G. In the first episode, you said you will play the HD collection version. I know I made a mistake there. But I saw many comments were recommending the original, so I was wondering which version you ended up playing. I remember watching an hour YouTube video explaining everything wrong with it, so I avoided the HD collection. I did not mean to say the HD collection on PS3. What I was meaning to say was I was going to try to play the PC version modded.
Okay.
I didn't end up doing that because I was trying to get it set up on my Steam Deck, and I just wasn't able to really get it figured out in time for a long trip that I took. So I ended up emulating the PS2 version on my Steam Deck for that trip. Perfect. So I just played the PS2 version, and then I just watched the Born from a Wish scenario on YouTube.
That makes sense.
You played the PS2 version.
Yeah, we both had the same version there.
Okay, we got Chocolate Rob here. He's here with us live as well.
Yes.
The difference between Silent Hill 2 and Crime and Punishment is that the Silent Hill series is supernatural. Therefore, the things...
See, that's what I didn't get. I wish I understood more about Silent Hill
before playing.
Yeah.
Therefore, the things that manifest in the town are actually manifested and not simply all in James' head. Yeah. The series usually takes a layered reality approach, which is why different people see different things. But in some way, the creatures are made real. This is especially true in Maria's case, as she is created as a person rather than a monster. If you look up the Rick and Morty clip, You Pass Butter, Might have to do that. Maria is basically this robot. She's given sentience, and her purpose is suffer, which is bad. I guess is what we were kind of talking about at the end there. Her fate, right, is to suffer.
Yeah.
She's made real just to suffer, which is bad enough in and of itself. But when James decides he does not need her anymore, she was given an existence of pain and then discarded. You can forgive her being a bit upset. No, being more than a bit upset by the way this whole thing ends. You can pity her a lot. Okay. I've never heard the idea that Pyramid Head is actually helping James before. He, it, and Maria seem to be a package deal from the town, one to represent his idealized partner only to be repeatedly brutalized at the hands of the other in order for James to punish himself by experiencing it over and over. At the end, he acknowledges this, discarding them both together. Pyramid Head accepts this and suicides, but Maria tries to keep on going as she seems to be that little bit more alive to begin with. The most established interpretation of there suddenly being two Pyramid Heads is that each represents a different murder. The original represented James' guilt at killing Mary, but the second appears because he has now killed Eddie. Okay. The two eggs, one rusty and the other new, similarly represent the two he killed. Well, that's interesting because one is like a rusted egg color and one's crimson. You could see that almost as like an old murder or like a one fresh.
Oh, sure. Okay.
That's an interesting take.
I wonder about that.
Mary and Eddie, his original sin and his fresher one. P.S. You forgot to bring up Christina Aguilera. Oh, did we not do that?
We did.
Oh, I thought we did.
We brought it up.
Okay. Yeah. Presumably you were going to mention that James was attracted to or lusting after her appearance at the Teen Choice Awards, just as he was to the nurses at the hospital while Mary was... Okay.
Oh,
so,
that's possible. That's not actually what I was going to talk about there.
Oh.
What I was going to talk about is how Christina Aguilera is the collective anima of America. Basically.
Oh, that's
so
interesting.
at that time in the year 2000, right? Or 2002 or whenever this game came out, you've got like they're called archetypes of the collective unconscious, right? So everyone has an anima. You have a different personal anima than I do, but there is also the collective idea of the anima, and there will arise figures in the collective, group through the unity of everybody that they will lift up these certain idols that'll show up and receive universal approval from everybody that tend to represent these archetypes. And specifically, Christina Aguilera was the collective anima for all of America in the year 2000 or whatever.
At that time.
Right? She had been elevated to that point, and she resembled the anima. She resembled the anima of the collective. And I think there's something to that. I think that's correct. I forgot to bring it up, though, but that is where I was going to go with that one.
That's very interesting.
Yep.
Okay, let's move on to Brennan Betts here. Out of all the endings of the game, which one did you guys get? Okay, we already answered that.
Yep.
Did it feel like a fitting and conclusive ending of the game? If not, which ending was your...
Yep.
Okay, we've kind of talked about that. Sean Harlan. Hey, Mike and Kaysen. First off, Mike, nice to see your hair is coming back finally. Yeah, it's almost back. Almost fully back. At least I'm not bald anymore. Kaysen, you're looking good as always. Anyways, as for my question, do you think any of the characters represent the 7 deadly sins?
I didn't think about that, but it's possible.
Well, he's bringing up Eddie with the gluttony.
Yeah, the gluttony and the seductress.
Maria for luster.
But with the other ones, like pride, they're definitely pride. In fact, James is probably that.
Yeah. I don't know if there's enough characters to really represent all 7.
Well, you would have Laura, Angela, Maria, James, Eddie. We're getting close. Maybe if we had Pyramid Head and Mary.
Yeah, I guess so.
Then we can do it, but I don't know that.
Is Mary...
who's Sloth? Oh, Eddie would be Sloth.
Well, he's
gluttony.
No,
but he's gluttony.
Though.
Then who's the slothful one? I don't know that they correspond.
Well, Angela kind of... She's real slow when she talks. She's really
she lays
depressed,
down
but I don't know if that really fits.
Maybe that can work. Sloth, lust, gluttony, greed, sloth, wrath.
Wrath, that's
Shadow.
what I was thinking of.
Would that
Wrath
be
would be... No, I think Wrath would be Mary.
Okay.
She's like pissed, right?
And then envy is Maria. But Maria's already one of them anyways. And then pride is James. Yeah, I don't know that it's close. It's close, though. It's close. I don't know that it's
probably there's probably a way to read it.
Yeah.
That way. I think if you thought about it more seriously, you could probably find a way. Wish I had a better answer.
We got to wrap it up soon.
All right. I'm going to read... Well, there's just one more, so this is it.
Oh, good.
I was really surprised to hear you guys say you didn't find the game. Oh, I wanted to read this one. I did. Okay.
Good.
I was really surprised to hear you guys didn't find the game scary. I'm curious as to what your respective setups were. I made sure to only play when I was alone in the house and when it was dark. I would turn all the lights out and really immerse myself in the game. I found I was only able to play 1 or 2 hours at a time before having to stop, as I found myself getting more and more unsettled as my play session went on.
Unsettling, the game is unsettling.
Yes, I agree with that.
That is for sure.
However, I imagine if I had played in broad daylight with my wife on the couch just making chit-chat, I don't think I would have had anything like the same experience. However, I accept these conditions are not as readily available to some people. Should also mention I played the Enhanced Edition on PC, which is fantastic, not the HD collection, which is apparently not as good.
Okay.
So I did want to talk about this because I think I touched on it a bit when we were talking about Jacob's Ladder, but it's actually kind of hard for me to feel like a lot of fear. It takes a lot. I guess I shouldn't say it's hard. It takes a lot. I don't think it's because the game, like you said, I think unsettling is a really good word.
It does feel like someone's groping around in your skull.
Yes.
The game does feel that way, and it's very unsettling.
I also talked about this experience in Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice.
Although
podcast.
when you first see like hell like showing up on the bridge, that was legitimately really scary. Now this game had a few moments like that too, like when Pyramid Head's dragging the sword, and anyways.
Yeah.
Like there were moments sometimes.
I had an experience where I felt something groping around in my head.
Yeah.
Like I had I don't know how to explain it. Kaysen came up with a pretty good one in that podcast. Go watch it if you're interested. Yeah. But I've had an experience this unsettled feeling, but not necessarily like terrified. You know what I mean? Like you feel uneasy, you feel uncomfortable. I think the game evoked some of those feelings in me, but I never felt like genuinely terrified while playing it. And I think it's because I didn't find the monsters particularly threatening. Even on a higher difficulty where they can kill you faster, they are too slow. They're animated in too clunky and kind of janky a way for me to really feel organically terrified of them. I can kind of see behind the curtain a little bit too much as far as game development goes. Yeah. And I'm seeing janky animations.
Well, how scary do you remember feeling when you played it the first time? If you
I think I was more terrified, that genuine terrified feeling at the very beginning of the game. Like when you first are, oh my gosh, that radio, they're close, where are they? Yeah. But once I realized, like, they can't really catch you when you run around them. I mean, it's a little bit more so when you're in closed spaces like hallways, but you just kind of like move to one side of the hallway, and then you just dart around it again. You know, the tank control-y feel to it can make that hard, but once you get used to controls, it's pretty easy to avoid them. Yeah. So I just never felt genuinely that they were very threatening enemies, and so I don't think I really felt the terror feeling. Yeah. But you'd certainly feel the unsettled feeling, like this is messed up.
Well, the game's very good at that.
Yeah.
And that's more what they were going for, I think.
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, and this is another one from Rob. Really quick, opinions on the redubbed HD version.
Don't have any. Didn't see.
I didn't really watch that. Nope. So, and any thoughts on the remake trailer? Have you seen the trailer for the remake yet?
I haven't.
Maybe we should watch that real quick.
Okay.
And maybe just give some thoughts on that and then close it out.
Interesting. I mean, I gotta see more. It might be good.
Could be.
Might be the best game ever made.
I didn't love the music there. I think they should have used more of the Silent Hill-y feeling music. Yeah. That was a little more, kind of trailer type.
Yes,
typical trailer music.
I'm getting kind of sick of trailers nowadays, actually.
I sure am too.
Alrighty.
We'll see. We'll see.
It's
not horrible.
No, it could be good.
There were some. The one thing I saw there, it was that he grabs the noose. We never talked about that in this whole thing. That scene where he grabs that noose, it was part of like a puzzle where he pulled it. You remember pulling it down?
That's interesting.
I remember saying absolutely nothing about that, but that is kind of one of the more iconic visuals of the game.
You're right.
We failed in our analysis. I'm sorry, everybody.
Sorry about that.
But this is the end of our Silent Hill 2 analysis.
I mean, it's obvious what that means, so I don't know, but it was a thing. So at least at one point he did contemplate suicide and then didn't do it.
That was another one of the reasons why I like the in-water ending. It's another one of those things leading to the, I'd never kill myself, but he's actually there to kill himself. Anyway, thanks everybody.
All right.
We'll see you again next week with Bioshock.
Bioshock.
Till then, peace out.